The medium of animation is one that provides boundless possibilities for artistic expression. Indeed, many animated films and television shows have a certain appeal to viewers that make them able to be both appreciated and marketable. One of the biggest producers of this content is undoubtedly Japan, with their anime industry being a cultural powerhouse that pumps out things every year. However, it becomes quite the chore to sift through titles should one want to find anything new or worthwhile. Let us go to a different time then, a time when anime was only in its infancy. Among the media from this era, graced with cultural significance, there exists a movie incomparable to its contemporaries. An experimental film forgotten by history that would spell the end for an industry pioneer in order to paint a world of beauty and depravity. This is Belladonna of Sadness. Before I dive into the story, I feel it's important to talk about its background. Belladonna of Sadness is an art film from 1973 that was directed by Eiichi Yamamoto and produced by Mushi Production, a studio created in 1961, which was responsible for many well-known films and television series during the early years of anime. They are most famous for adaptations of manga by their founder Osamu Tezuka, who is considered the father of anime. At its peak, it was a rival to Toei Animations, and focused on more kid-friendly content that defined early anime at the time, due to its commercial appeal at home and overseas, although the company would become troubled by financial issues. Tezuka and the studio would not shy away from more adult-oriented works, especially if it meant gaining money, and so they started work on a film trilogy, which they would call Anime Rama.
ある時週刊誌を見てましたら手塚治虫さんがですね漫画映画を始めるっていうふうに出てたんですよ。そしたら20分ぐらい待たされましたよ。廊下をピタピタピタピタと割と急ぎ足でやってくるスリッパの音がしてでドアが開いたらね「いやどうもどうも」ってわははと笑うんですよ。でこれが手塚さんの第一声でねその時に何という若い人なんだろうと思いました。手塚さんが30過ぎぐらいでしたよね。若いこんな若い人がもう児童漫画の帝王なのかっていう思いましたね。
This series was notable for its erotic and avant-garde imagery. Tezuka and Yamamoto first partnering up for 1969's 1001 Nights and then Cleopatra a year later. Although the first film would be a success domestically, it wouldn't do well overseas, with Cleopatra doing even worse. The poor earnings of these unique films would only compound the company's struggles, their calls for more commercial films causing Tezuka to step down from his post to focus on his manga in 1971, Yamamoto taking over his directorial duties for the company.
作家はやっぱりね、実験作品を作らなくちゃダメなんだと。実験作品も作って、たまに商業作品も作って、でそのお金をどんどんにしていくのが作家であって、商業作品ばっかり狙ってるっていうのは作家じゃないでね。
Development for Belladonna would soon begin, with the art director, Kuni Fukai, joining the project after Yamamoto would be intrigued by their work, while the music would be composed by Masahiko Sato, the vocals being done by his wife at the time, Chinatsu Nakayama. After 3 long years, Belladonna of Sadness would be completed, although it would be shown in only a few theaters before Mushi Production would file for bankruptcy, marking the end for one of Japanimation's greatest trailblazers. Its legacy would live on, however, through the founding of new anime studios, and new talent following its collapse, with some that are still kicking around in the present day. With all that out of the way, though, let's talk about the movie itself. Belladonna is based around the 1862 novel La Sorcière by the French author and historian Jules Michelet, which concerned itself with medieval witchcraft and as such is also known by the title Satanism and Witchcraft. To Michelet, the witches' Sabbath served as a form of resistance by peasants and women against the oppression of the Catholic Church and the patriarchy. His account being one of the earliest texts to cast witches and witch trials under a socio-political context. Despite the historical accuracy of Michelet's book being dubious at best, it's still important for its emphasis on the individuals who live under these institutions, this idea being what Belladonna of Sadness builds upon. The film is structured almost like a Western fairy tale, with the majority of its runtime being presented through beautiful watercolor stills, alongside moments of animation for its wild and transgressive scenes. The influence of French history is obvious, as events exhibit the growing unrest against nobility within its village setting, with the main character even being a village girl named Jeanne, clearly inspired by the saint Joan of Arc. Likewise, she will become a martyr, just not a saint guided by God. Early on, the film highlights the many hardships and injustices that the villagers live through while under the heel of the church and their lord, with their oppression being at its cruelest when Jeanne is taken at a wedding night to be gang raped as tribute. In Christianity, sin is regarded as the acts which cause man to stray from the path of God, leading people towards their damnation in hell. In a similar way, women have sometimes been regarded with caution in Christian societies of the past, due to the first woman, Eve, being the first to perpetuate sin by eating fruit from the tree of knowledge and sharing it with Adam, thus tainting all of humanity. Unfortunately, this gives way to the notion of women being dangerous, with history noting many women accused of various misdeeds such as witchcraft or adultery. Satan himself plays a part in this story as the one who leads Jeanne towards a tragic path of resistance, a phallic entity who entices her with the well-being of her husband, Jean, despite him becoming distant and abusive after her defilement. Common interpretations of the devil often present them as pure evil, but this film actually flips the script by making them the spark of rebellion against the village's corrupt leadership, with Jeanne elevating her influence in the village alongside that of Satan through her pledge to him. Once the nobility take notice, however, especially the Lord's envious wife, Jeanne is quickly branded as a witch and forced to leave the village. As Jeanne is left to die in the wilderness, she offers herself completely to the devil, opening herself to pain, pleasures, and, above all else, forbidden knowledge. The full power of the devil is definitely the highlight of the film, as it showcases the skills of the animators with scenes of absolute visual stimulation, an overwhelming mishmash of strange and experimental imagery that would probably fit in a Ralph Bakshi movie or perhaps Yellow Submarine. With her newfound gifts, Jeanne is able to cure the Black Plague within the village and build a literal cult following, defying the Lord's authority and providing freedom from oppression. Despite the indecency of Jeanne's Sabbath, it is treated with much respect, the location being presented as its own kind of Eden, where one can cast aside the yoke of feudalism, status, and religion in favor of personal satisfaction and sexual freedom. Jeanne's influence even seeps into the nobility, as the Lord's page asks her for a potion to seduce the Lord's wife, the Lord deciding to resolve this unrest by giving Jeanne an ultimatum. Offer her allegiance and cure to him for the title of second highest noble in the land, as well as 100 acres of farmland for her and Jeanne. If she doesn't, she will die. Jeanne chooses death. The villagers and the guilty Jeanne can only watch on as she is to be burnt at the stake, her pain finally stirring her lover to action as he charges towards their oppressors for her sake. he fails miserably. As Joan dies with sadness in her heart, her pride is able to remain intact as the couple's final moments horrify their onlookers, their deaths rousing the villagers' fury and laying the seeds of dissent and rebellion. The original ending of the film concludes with the laughter of the devil, as the villagers' faces transform into Joan's, although the restored version currently available to the public uses the one from a failed 1979 re-release, which ends on a more satisfying note, as the fire she started finally erupts onto the stage of history itself. A fire called Revolution. In spite of the poor circumstances surrounding the film's release, it has fortunately gained new life in the modern day thanks to the restoration efforts of Cinelicious Pix. Belladonna's psychedelic visuals, on top of its reimagining of Western history, allows the movie to captivate viewers long after the credits roll, even if it takes a while to get used to everything. Not many anime or films nowadays are willing to take a risk in the pursuit of artistry, so it's always a treat to experience something truly unorthodox, even if it means middling sales or the death of a company in this case.